The curse was beautiful, but that's what made it so dangerous. The boy screamed and cried out in hopes that someone, anyone, would hear him. Vines twisted and entwined with his body, making him as much a part of them as they were of him. He couldn't count the years that passed, the torture of watching his friends and family move on without him, watching the world move on without him. As slowly as the vines grew, he lost hope, each day draining more of his spirit until he accepted his fate of being one with the forest. Crimson flowers bloomed across the vines, the only trace left of the boy who lived within. The glade, silent and unmoving, stayed frozen until the winds shifted. The hike to the next village took you through the green glades, a land inhabited by druids and mystical creatures you had only heard about in myths. It was said the unicorns, fairies, and druids who roamed the forest created trouble and tricks for any who dared pass through. You were nervous to sleep, worried one of the devious creatures would pull something on you, causing you to become more lost. So you continued to push yourself, hour after hour, on and on until you felt the tingles of numbness in your muscles. Fatigue blurred your vision, black dots swirling behind your eyes, making you dizzy. You held your hand up to steady yourself, but it touched only air, and as your body fell sideways, you rolled down an incline, coming to a stop in an open clearing. Sky blue filled your vision as you lay there, the soft grass caressing your back and legs. The sound of a small, crystal-like stream caused you to sit up and look around. Your eyes landed on the clear water, as you realized it wound its way through the middle of the glade, moss and grasses surrounding the base of the trees around it. The slight hum of insects was the only noise other than the babbling brook, and the beauty blessing your eyes entranced you. In the center of the glade was an ancient Japanese maple, vines growing up around it and sprouting crimson flowers. The vines almost covered the entirety of the tree, only leaving room for a few leaves to receive sunlight. All of the flora seemed to be angled towards the maple and its vines, drawing your puzzled gaze to the vine-covered branches. It seemed unnatural, to say the least, the maple being the only tree almost engulfed by vines. You stood up from where you had fallen and walked over to the tree, running your hand along the vines, which were smooth to the touch. A strange aura emitted from them, as if they were not alive or dead, but somewhere in between. Though the glade was beautiful, you knew your food supplies were running low and would have to be restocked at the next village. It was still about a day and a half hike, if you were correct. Your exhaustion was reaching peak levels, causing your body to feel as though it was trying to move through thick mud. Maybe you would stay in the glade for the night. It seemed well hidden and quiet enough that you could hide without being seen. You realized the sun was going down behind the trees as your skin prickled at the loss of heat and your eyes noticed stars beginning to decorate the sky. Crouching down by the vines, you made a makeshift bed with a bedroll and small amount of food you brought. Then you fell asleep to the buzzing of the insects and the babbling brook. The boy watched a figure tumble into his glade. They were beautiful as the glade itself. No one had come to this glade in... he didn't know how long, as the days and years blurred together. He watched them examine the glade, the brook, his tree, the vines, and then trail a hand down one of the tendrils. Human touch was something he had lacked for so long, and to have anyone, especially this human, here, was a dream come true. He felt his chest swell with hope as the person laid out their bedroll and fell asleep, vowing that he would protect them from any who would seek to harm or disturb them through the night. You woke to rays of sunlight streaming through the trees, casting beams of light into the clearing. The brook sparkled in the early morning sun, and you realized everything was more magnificent than it had been the night before. Beside your bedroll was a small amount of berries and a woven star, courtesy, you assumed, of the forest spirits and animals. The sun rose higher and higher in the sky, causing you to jolt in alarm. You needed to resume your journey to the village, otherwise you wouldn't be able to reach it before your food rations ran out. Gathering your bedroll, pack, and little woven star, you began to walk out of the glade, using the sun as your guide. And, unbeknownst to you, in the maple tree, the boy was crying for help, his heart and hope shattering at your departure. You walked and walked past the seemingly endless expanse of trees. You could barely see the sun through the thick foliage, but you assumed you had a good sense of the direction you were going in. That was, until you stumbled into another glade. Actually, it was the same glade from earlier. You stopped, looking around wide-eyed at the brook, Japanese maple, and flowered vines that decorated the glade. There was no way you had walked in a circle. You had used the sun, walked in a straight line, and kept your eyes on the trees as you went. You turned around and walked back out again, continuing a few more steps before you walked into the glade again. "What the hell?" you muttered, frustration bubbling up as you continued to return to the glade. You ran through the trees, faster and faster, trying to escape the continuous loop. Tripping over roots and sliding on leaves, you again toppled into the clearing, feeling a tinge of pain on your foot. You sprawled on the moss, ankle aching with pain as your hands grabbed it on instinct. Rolling your eyes at the inconvenience, you decided to fix it later. It was time to figure out what the hell was going on. Every time you tried to leave, you ended up back in the magical glade. You couldn't stay indefinitely, so there had to be a reason. And as you limped to the brook to get water, an unnatural presence filled the air around you. The trees stopped shifting in the wind, and everything else was still. You grabbed a bandage out of your travel pack, wrapping it around your foot the way your mother had whenever you were injured. Sitting on the forest floor, it began to dawn on you that maybe the forest, or at least the beings in it, wanted you to be here. The magical aura of this glade felt familiar, like the feelings surrounding your grandmother's cottage or flower shop. But this magic felt older, more powerful, like it wouldn't hesitate to bind you to this place, to keep you tied down, unable to leave. You were propped up against the tree and vines, humming a lullaby from your childhood. One your mother had sung over and over to you before you went to sleep every night or if you injured yourself playing in the fields surrounding your house. Now that she wasn't here, you sang to yourself, the melody calming you instantly. You began to feel more comfortable before it occurred to you that your ankle wasn't hurting. Oh, right. Lullaby. Healing properties. You remembered. You began to hum the opening to the lullaby, nodding your head and tapping your foot to keep in time. The first verse began, your voice soaring as you hit each note with practiced precision. There will come a soldier, a mighty dragonborn. He will tear your city down, ole, ole, o Lord, ole, 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 o Lord. He will tear your city down, ole, ole, o Lord. You finished the first verse, remembering the story that went along with the song. Once upon a time, there was a dragon boy who had the power to level cities. Instead, he used his power to help the Druid Queen rule over her people and protect them from all who would dare harm the magical beings, especially the queen's young son. Closing your eyes, you imagine the druid queen Mitsuki, her blonde hair shining in the sunlight and that fierce gaze that settled any crowd. Your focus shifted to the next few lyrics of the song. There will come a poet whose weapon is a word. She will slay you with her tongue. Ole, ole, oh Lord. Ole, 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 oh Lord. She will slay you with her tongue. Ole, ole, oh Lord. Your mother used to describe this poet as a pink-skinned girl with a viper's tongue, who was unafraid to speak out against anyone, even the druid queen. She traveled with her companions to far-off lands, utilizing her quick wit to sway people to the queen's side. Your voice continued to rise, the forest seeming to quiet as it listened. You, unaware of the animals and magical beings who watched you from the shadows, belted the lines of the next and final verse. There will come a ruler whose hair is singed in blood, smeared with blood like Suki's boy. Ole, ole, oh Lord. Ole, 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 oh Lord. Smeared with blood like Suki's boy. Ole, ole, oh Lord. As the crescendo of notes came crashing down to earth, you felt vines move behind you, and you whirled. You pushed off the tree, stumbling back and throwing your hands below you to steady yourself as you pushed up into a standing position. Untangled and retreating from the tree, the vines revealed a face. His eyes were closed, a serene look on his face, but the rest of his body was poised, as if he had been ready to flee before the vines ensnared him. You approached slowly, keeping your guard up in case he attacked you, or... you didn't really know. The fading sunlight shone off his ash-blonde hair as it swirled from a gust of wind, and you were struck by a sudden thought. Has he been trapped within the vines all this time? You stood, preoccupied in your thoughts. That was until a groan sounded from him. Head shooting up and eyes on high alert, you spotted the boy beginning to fall. Rushing forward, you tried to catch him, heedless of how heavy he was. You gasped, straining to fill your lungs with air as the wind got knocked out of your chest. You hit the ground with a thud, the boy falling on top of you and staying there. Bright crimson filled your vision as you opened your eyes, coming face to face with Vine Boy, as you now referred to him. His eyes swam with emotions and stories untold, but also sadness and what looked like guilt. He made no move to get off, only mumbling a gruff thank you as he wrapped his arms around you. You're the boy from the song, you whispered, startling yourself as the description you had sang about began to line up with the boy in front of you. You're the boy I was singing about. He set his hands on either side of your head, moving away as you took in the rest of him. Ash-blonde hair adorned with a woven crown, broad shoulders with rippling muscles beneath, and tanned skin that made his crimson eyes sparkle. My eyes are up here, the voice drawled, as your eyes shot up to make contact with his. Blush covered your face as you realized you had been staring at his body, the body that was still hovered over yours. Shit, was all that came out of your mouth as you tried and failed to form coherent sentences. You attempted to scramble back away from him, but realized your legs were locked by his torso. Looking up at him with a raised brow, the situation seemed to dawn on him. You saw him push himself back off of you to sit cross-legged on the mossy forest floor, and an awkward silence filled the air as you fumbled with what to say. You looked down at your hands, fiddling with them in your anxiousness, until the boy mumbled something incoherent. What was that? You asked.
Bakugo. Call me Bakugo.
You were startled at the gruffness of his voice, but you blinked at him in understanding, extending your hand to him. Well, hello, Bakugo. I'm Listener. He stared at your hand, seeming to hesitate, but then took it in a firm grip. You smiled at him before continuing. So, you were trapped in a tree? Your eyes raked over his body, assessing his strength and body language. There was no way a guy with this physique couldn't escape those vines. Unless... You opened your mouth to add to your question, but he spoke instead.
Yeah, dumbass. What about it?
You frowned, tilting your head to the side.
I was stuck in that fucking tree for 3,000 years. I pissed off my old hag's stupid siren friend and she cursed me, entangling me in these goddamn vines. Stupid old hag said it was for my own good. But I don't think she understood that curses like that are hard to break. The vines choked me, wrapping around my body, basically holding me in place, which was fucking annoying, and none of my magic or strength could get me out of them.
You continued to observe the boy across from you, noticing how his brows seemed to furrow the longer he told his story.
And then I watched you stumble into my glade, and I was so happy. Happy that someone was here.
You had closed your eyes, letting yourself relax as his gravelly voice flowed over you.
Listener?
You peeked at Bakugo. I'm listening. Keep going. Nodding, he continued, explaining how the spell could only be broken if 3 specific requirements were met. First, a healing song passed down through the siren's family had to be sung. Second, the descendant of the siren had to be the one singing the song. And third, the singer had to be his kindred soul, commonly known as a soulmate. You were taken aback when he mentioned soulmates, as they were rare, if not impossible to find, and most people lived their whole lives without finding their fated pair. You racked your brain to find when you had last heard of someone finding their soulmate. Maybe a distant family friend? You couldn't remember, but the familiar magic began to make sense. And as you pieced together the requirements he had listed, your eyes widened. You sat up, whipping your head towards his face, eyes wide with questions and uncertainty. The boy rolled his eyes in exasperation, sighing before stating in a matter-of-fact voice,
Yes, dumbass. We're soulmates.
He let you take a moment to register that tidbit of information before continuing.
You broke the spell, and only someone who met all the qualifications could have done that.
And a bit quieter.
I feel drawn to you.
You almost missed the last part as your brain configured his words into thinkable thoughts. But you caught the muttered afterthought. Humming in agreement, you locked your eyes with his, and replied, I feel it too. The pull towards you, I mean. The relief that showed in his eyes was quickly replaced with the indifference you'd seen in your tsundere friends. Oh, he was going to be a fun one to talk to. You spoke long into the night, healing your foot in the process, and learning more about the blonde-haired boy sitting across from you. He had finished telling you about the curse, and soon began to recall old memories of his friends, their descriptions matching up with the characters, now real people, of your lullaby. You saw the wistfulness in his face, and the words came out before you could stop them. Not that you did, but who knows how he would react. Maybe we can find them. I'm an adventurer, you know, so it's not like I have anywhere I have to be. Why don't we head back to the nearest place you remember and begin from there? His expression seemed to perk up after hearing that, but he didn't let what seemed to be excitement show, instead suggesting you sleep as it was late, and he would tell you what he thought about your offer in the morning. Knowing he was hiding his giddiness, you clambered back to your comfy spot by the tree, nestling into it and humming yourself to sleep. Birds chirped as you cracked your eyes open. Deciding the light was too much for you to handle at this point, you closed them again, nuzzling into the soft, warm... Wait, warm? What the heck? You moved your hands toward the object, feeling rock-hard... something? Under the fabric. Wait, fabric?
What the hell are you doing, dumbass?
A voice growled in your ear, and you squeaked, falling back as the form of Bakugo stretched in front of you. You were... What were...
You were shivering last night, and I decided to take matters into my own hands, okay? No need to freak out. On the other hand, why were you feeling my abs? Seems kinda weird.
You shoved your face into your hands, embarrassment inflaming your face. I am so sorry. I woke up and didn't know what it... Well, you were, and then you scared me, and I'm so sorry. You continued to repeat your apologies, until Bakugo shut you up with a finger to your lips.
Grab your stuff and follow me. We're headed to my spring cabin.
You didn't know how long you had walked, but it had been a while. Once you had gathered your stuff, Bakugo had strolled right out of the glade off in the apparent direction of his cabin. As an adventurer, you had a lot of stamina, but you were pushing your limit already with the fast pace Bakugo was walking at. Bakugo, can we please slow down? Of course, his reply was a gruff no. But this time he added,
You'll be able to see it once we get to the top of this hill.
The curiosity of seeing the cabin got to you, pushing your legs past their breaking point to propel yourself to the top. As you crested the hill, your breath caught. It was beautiful. The cabin was half embedded into the rocky side of the opposite hill, a lagoon and small beach laying in the valley below it. The water was surrounded by forests, and there was a stairway leading from the sand to the half-stone, half-wood structure. You call this a cabin? You questioned. This is a freaking mansion! He shrugged.
Stop gawking and let's go. We only have a few miles left.
A few miles consisted of a trek down the steep hill, across the lagoon-filled valley, and up about 100 flights of your worst enemy. Stairs. You almost cried at the thought, your legs echoing their sentiments. Bakugo! You whined.
No.
Please?
No, I'm not going to.
Please?
Fine.
He grunted as he bent down and held his hands behind his back for you to jump on. Yay! Once you... Well, actually, Bakugo had cleared the steps. He opened the door into a slightly overgrown foyer.
Stupid plants.
He muttered before waving his hand and clearing most of them. You have...
Yes, I have magic, dipshit. I'm a druid prince, remember?
You mouthed a silent "oh," moving closer to the windows and out onto the balcony. This place needs a bit of cleaning, but otherwise, it's beautiful, you said, more to yourself than to your now soulmate.
Yeah.
Bakugo walked up beside you, leaning on the railing.
And once it's finished, we'll begin the search for my friends.
He looked out at the horizon, and you smiled as a grin graced his features. You couldn't wait to go on adventures with him, and meeting his friends was something you could look forward to. Orange and pink hues mixed in the sky as the sun set on your third day together, and standing on that balcony with the valley below, you couldn't help but be giddy as fate laid her path out for you and your new companion.